Welcome back, Rewired listeners. This is Torben Anderson, your host from Rewired for Success. If you are a business owner that wants to take true control and rewire your business for serious scale-up success, then you have come to precisely the right place. Whether you're a startup or an established business or getting ready to scale, then this is for you. Today, we continue our series of interviews with a special focus in this episode on a really exciting startup, in particular, a blockchain startup. And I'm super lucky that today's guest is indeed a close friend of mine, Ross Dold, I'll be introducing in a moment. And I think we've known each other for more than 30 years, so I'm really, really lucky to have him on the call today. So I'll be introducing him in a moment, but first, I want to thank Process Street, our sponsors of today's episode. At Rewired, we use Process Street to map out our internal processes in a repeatable way that everyone can, reuse, and those checklists are available whenever you need them. More about that at the end of the show. If you're listening to this, I'm Torben Anderson, your host. I'm the founder of Rewired, and today I want to introduce the co-founder of EOSphere, Ross Dold. Welcome to the show, Ross.
Hey, Torben. Thanks for having me on.
Great.
Coming to you from Australia.
Yeah, so Ross is joining us from Perth, Australia. And tell us more about EOSphere. Tell us, what is it all about?
Oh, okay. Well, I think let's start from the beginning. EOSphere is a company that's come together in order to launch the EOS blockchain. If you didn't know much about EOS, it's a third generation delegated proof of stake blockchain that has been the brainchild of Daniel Larimer. And the difference between this and previous blockchains is it's actually going to be launched by the community and run by the community. So EOSphere as a company has actually been set up specifically to run the infrastructure and governance layer of that blockchain. So do you want me to go into some detail about how that all comes together, Torben?
Yeah, let's cover that in a moment. So when we think about blockchain and cryptocurrency, I know that our listeners will be keen to know more about that, and I'll include some links in the show notes. But just for the listeners, tell us a little bit more about what is EOS in fact, and why have you decided to base your business on EOS?
So it's interesting how you said blockchain and cryptocurrency as if that was synonymous with each other. The interesting thing is that cryptocurrency, or the actual currency part of anything to do with blockchain, is actually an application that runs on top of a core technology, which is blockchain, which is essentially a database that is distributed around the world, that is immutable and has consensus for how it's actually created. We believe in the actual EOS platform because it is, in fact, that it's a platform for decentralized applications to be developed on. So just like a Linux, just like a Windows, just like a macOS, those are platforms, and applications would then run on top of those. So an application such as a cryptocurrency or token would actually run on top of the EOS blockchain.
Great. Yeah, that's super helpful. I mean, that's exactly the kind of direction that our listeners need. So in terms of what you as EOSphere are doing, what's important to you about your business, and what are you doing?
Well, EOS is a general purpose platform created for developers in order to run their applications on top of it. Our role would be to provide some of the infrastructure, but also implement some of the governance layer behind that. Now, interesting, compared to other blockchains, EOS brings with it probably three real important differentiators compared to any of the other blockchain technology. The first one is that it has a governance layer. Now, this is almost unheard of in the blockchain, where code is law is typically the angle that everything is thought at. On EOS, if you have an application running, for instance, a cryptocurrency application, and for some reason you made a mistake in your code, and everything was running great, and you had people with millions of tokens worth millions of dollars perhaps. And there was some kind of bug where some malicious person could come in and steal all those people's funds. The purists will say, because it's a blockchain and it must be completely immutable and code is law, means that in their mind, that those funds could be stolen or moved to somebody else, and everybody will be happy with it because you should have just read the code a little bit better. In EOS, it's a governance layer where if I wrote an application and I saw that something like this was happening, when I say application, if I wrote a cryptocurrency and suddenly discovered there was a leak, like for instance what happened in the DAO hack with Ethereum, I would be able to request of the block producers, the people that are running the actual blockchain, to freeze that contract. Freeze it. Doesn't mean freeze it and stop everything that's happening. It means freeze it so nobody can do anything more with it, and then send it off to arbitration. When it goes to arbitration, real world arbitrators could actually get involved, review exactly how the code was created, perhaps maybe it's the spirit of that contract for that cryptocurrency, and then reverse the stolen funds and implement some corrections. They would then give that information through to the block producers, who would then make the appropriate code change, and everything will go back, presumably more secure this time. The second thing that EOS brings is a level of performance. Performance is something that's held back blockchains for years, where you're looking at, I think it's somewhere around 5 to 10 transactions a second. For Bitcoin, maybe 20 transactions a second for Ethereum. Really not scaling to that thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands transactions per second required in order to sustain something such as a Facebook with all those likes. Every time you click a like, that's another transaction. Not enough to scale to meet like the demands of, for instance, Visa or MasterCard, who need hundreds of thousands, and certainly not enough to scale for the likes of perhaps an exchange, where they need like millions of transactions a second in order to actually process all the appropriate trades. The third, which is something that it brings to the table, because it actually scales horizontally. The more compute, the more memory, the more CPU, more storage you throw at it, the more transactions per second it can scale. And it has the ability to talk to side chains, which will be duplicates of that same blockchain, enabling it to have certain chains concentrating on certain apps. So it scales, literally to the millions of transactions per second in the future. And we know at least 1,000 transactions per second at the get-go. And the third thing it brings is usability. The front ends can be created using web applications that make it very easy for a general user to actually work with a blockchain. As a matter of fact, a general user might not even know that they're using a blockchain. When you're phoning on your phone, you know that it's using GSM. You don't know anything about the GSM protocol, the logic inside the phone. You just know you can send a text and look at your email and make a phone call, right? And that's what it brings. On the likes of Steemit, you can use Steemit, which is also a graphene-based technology EOS comes from, and you can use that, blog, and get paid to post and comment, and you don't even have to know that it's on a blockchain. So there's three differentiators with EOS. I don't know if I went a little bit too far, a little bit too wide. I don't know.
No, I think that's really helpful in all the different kind of blockchain cryptocurrency out there. There's so much out there that people need to hear these things about what's working, what isn't working, and giving a bit more detail about what EOS is doing is really helpful in terms of how they're differentiating. But I'm also interested to know, why did you start EOSphere?
Well, I knew that because of my experience with BitShares and with Steemit, which were the two prior versions of this type of technology, I knew that there would be a requirement to have a competent block producer, someone to run this infrastructure. And I also knew that myself being in Australia and the rest of the team being in Australia would provide a degree of geographic diversity compared to some of the other block producers, presumably in the world. And I thought, I suppose we haven't got to that yet, but when you are a block producer, you actually get rewarded for every block that you sign. Obviously, you have to pay for your infrastructure and your governance and your operations support and that kind of stuff. But there's also expected to be some funds available in order for you to reinvest into initiatives. I wanted to bring some of that back directly to Australia. We are veterans in the space of graphene, and blockchain to a degree. We've been involved with it since like 2012. And I thought we would probably be really good candidates in order to bring that here to Australia, and very good to evangelize and at least kickstart this EOS platform. And I think that's one of the main reasons. I do this full time now. This is actually my job, my company. I'm passionate about it. I enjoy working on it every day. So why can't you enjoy what you work with every day?
Great. And what is it really you enjoy? What's really drawn you to this platform and this business that you've created?
In my opinion, EOS is the first general purpose platform that is going to enable all these blockchain dreams to come true. We've heard a lot of amazing ideas and companies that have been formed building dApps to run on other platforms. But we know that those platforms aren't going to scale, and they need some fundamental technical changes in order to actually launch those dApps. dApps being a decentralized application. And EOS is going to bring that. In my honest opinion, it's a platform built by developers for developers to develop on. And it means that there's going to be adoption. Blockchain is, in my opinion, finally going to go mainstream. It might not happen in the next few months, but at least we've got an operating system, a general purpose platform that these ideas can actually run on. If you get my drift. And that's what keeps me passionate about it.
Great. I mean, that is exactly, why people have said that blockchain technology is all about that next version of the internet, that next capability to build applications and take things forward in a different way. Are you at all concerned about, what could happen to EOS and basing a business on these applications and, basing it on the fact that you're a block producer and how that might work out?
So as a block producer, and we didn't go into it earlier, actually needs to be elected in the delegated proof of stake mechanism. The whole network runs on 21 block producers that are elected by the token holders. So, and only those 21 block producers receive any real rewards. There are 100 other backup block producers, but won't be receiving payment for producing blocks, not in the same way as the top 21 will. If we aren't elected, then obviously our company wouldn't have the funds in order to reinvest in order to grow the platform. So yes, there's a concern right there. So this is probably the first time I've ever been so involved in social media, so involved with writing articles, putting my thought process down, typing, presenting, meeting with people. I don't think I've ever been interviewed as much. Yeah, and it's all important in order for the token holders to know who you are and know what your manifesto is and what you plan to do with the rewards that you receive for signing these blocks. So it's like it's a campaign. It's a continuous campaign. I can tell you some of the excellent initiatives that we've just kicked off if that's of interest.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just last week, we signed an agreement with RMIT University here in Australia, where we will be funding research into governance and blockchain economics. Obviously, this is major for EOS because it has this governance layer, and you need the community to talk and understand what it is that we need inside in this governance layer. We need to understand how arbitration will work. And of course, there needs to be some education, right? And in the education space, we would be funding some courses in order for developers to further understand actually producing dApps, as well as students, getting more insight into governance on the blockchain. there's also a constitution that needs to be written, that is currently being written at the moment. That constitution is actually hashed into every single block on the blockchain. And the second initiative is we've partnered with Blockchain Center, who actually are an Australian-based company, but they're global. What they are is a shared workspace for startups and for dApp developers and for people wanting to understand blockchain. And because of that, I mean, a lot of companies would go there to just understand what kind of blockchain technology is available. And I would go and ask Blockchain Center. Because EOSphere will now be actually one of their global sponsors, whenever a new startup comes in to find out what's available, the first thing they'll hear about is EOS and the capability of EOS. And hopefully they'll be able to make an educated decision on which kind of blockchain technology will work for their dApp. So
Great.
just two of the many other initiatives, the two latest ones.
Great. I mean, you heard it here first. The word blockchain and governance in the same sentence. I think that's what people have been, really worried about, is where is this all going, and do we have control when we try and really, when you start talking about like constitutions and stuff, it's like the democratization of a lot of different things and bringing new capabilities and whole communities together. So that's really, really interesting.
I think it's really important for the business aspect as well. I mean, if you had I was going to say multi-million-dollar business. If you had any business that you had invested in all your time and effort, would you want to be putting that on a blockchain that because of some little mess up in some code somewhere, you could lose everything, right? Wouldn't you sleep better knowing that if something went against the spirit of how your dApp was created, that could be frozen and sent to arbitration? I mean, let's not say we're going to overturn it. Let's send it off to a group of individuals who I have agreed to, and the people using the platform have agreed to be the arbitrator, right? So we all agreed to that beforehand. So when it goes to arbitration, we should be comfortable that the outcome would be what we would see as correct.
Great. And so, Ross, you started. When did you start this business? And tell us more about your team and what you might advise others listening to this in terms of how you've put your team together.
So it actually started off with my co-founder Ken Hall. He was the one that decided that, hey, why don't we actually try and run for a block producer position? And I was like, wow, that's a brilliant idea. Because both him and I have been witnesses on Steemit, and he has been a delegate on BitShares prior to that. And the original team, because we all come from the infrastructure, data center infrastructure and services space, we've all worked for large integrators. The people that joined the team in the beginning all come from that circle, right? So obviously myself, more networking and security. Ken, who's a data center solution specialist and a developer. Walter, who's data center solutions specialist and cloud specialist. Rick, who is a friend of Ken's, he runs two large communities, gaming communities here in Perth. And when I say gaming, it's like trivia and poker evenings and that kind of stuff. And he's been pretty successful. And then we've got Shelly, who has a marketing background. So she did marketing and all the event coordination for us. She gets the EOSphere t-shirts and arranges all these meetups. Can get pretty complicated. And then we have Shannon, who recently joined us, Shannon Curtis. He's helps us with partnership and developing of our partnership relationships, which we need, such as RMIT and then finally we've got a web developer, Brendan, who's a blockchain developer and web developer. He built our front end, and he's building the web apps that we're going to use on the front end in order to communicate to the EOS blockchain, provide some services such as token checking and voting application. I hope I didn't forget anything. Like you thought, oh geez.
Yeah, I mean, but what advice would you have for our listeners in terms of your particular startup and what you think is important about setting up your team?
Look, we really lean. So I would say that you need to ensure that the team members that you bring on board, especially at the beginning, each have a specific skill set that you know that's going to bring the company to stage one. In our case, stage one is going to be being elected.
Yeah.
So, and I actually feel that we've done a lot, at least to put ourselves on that platform. And now it'll be up to the community to decide. But yeah, absolutely, you need to surround yourself by a team that can actually execute with a specific skill set.
Great. And what kind of processes do you guys use? What is working for you?
Well, we're using G Suite at the moment, at least as a platform.
Yeah.
So business management processes, most things are still building up to something that's enterprise grade. We have an accounting firm, we have legal advice, but yeah, we use G Suite a lot, which is something that was new to me. Seems to have some really good features and that works, especially the document control works really good, where you can both edit a document at the same time. That's pretty good. The company itself, obviously, because we haven't been elected, is completely self-funded at this point. So, there isn't a huge war chest giving us the ability to go and put some ERP in or anything. Not at this point. It's early days for us.
Great. So we ask all our guests 3 kind of hot seat questions. So I wanted to hit those now. What is the one thing, from your perspective, that people fail to do when they choose new technology?
So that is a really good question, and I've got a good answer for it. Or at least answer, you might have heard it before. It's where people see a new technology and then they go and try and find somewhere to fit it, right? I've met with multiple startups, and I've met with a few enterprise clients, and it doesn't happen all the time, but it's happened more than once now, where the client itself, or not my client, just somebody I was talking to, was saying, "Oh, we've got to apply this blockchain somewhere. We've got to disrupt the industry. Where's a good place? Where's a good problem that we can fix?" And in my opinion, that's probably the exact opposite of what you should be doing. Right? Rather find the problems and then say, how are we actually going to solve it? Oh, yeah, what have we got in our chest? Oh, blockchain. That actually might work. Or no, that's never going to work. Right? So that's my little pro tip.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you need to have your vision and your purpose first, and then seek out the technology that you need. And that might not be blockchain just because you think you're jumping on the next bandwagon.
Yeah, it's definitely a buzzword at the moment, and you need to be careful before you invest all that time and effort to ensure that it's going to actually solve the issue that you have already found.
Yeah. What's your favorite technology tool and why?
Quite enjoying video conferencing at the moment. Yeah, the Zoom platform works well. The Google Hangouts works quite well. I'm working from home at the moment, so it's definitely bridging a lot of the gap, and we can have multi-party video conferencing with the rest of the team. In saying that, something has to be said for being in an office. In an office where everybody's just sitting there and everyone's whining, we need to be new age and we need to be able to work from home. Nothing better than me just getting up, going to get some water, and while I'm walking over there, chatting to one of the other team about an issue that we were working on.
Yeah.
And myself, having worked in an office for 20 years, I think I miss that a little bit. I know, crazy to say, but yeah, you feel a bit isolated at home, and not just because I'm at home, I'm all on my own. It's that you miss some of that collaboration that you get in the office, and that's why the video conferencing comes in quite well.
Great. Yeah, we've moved over to Zoom at Rewired from Skype, so absolutely. So the next big thing in tech and why?
Do I have to say blockchain? That was you set me up for that. Hey, I haven't actually considered it, honestly. There's a lot of good stuff out there. I think 3D printing is coming on. I mean, that's a major game changer, where you can fabricate anything at a remote location, just by sending some code. That's pretty cool. I think blockchain is going to definitely going to have its place in the world, and it's up to platforms such as EOS that are going to bring it to fruition. So I think that's absolutely a tech game changer.
Great. And how can people get hold of you and read more about EOSphere?
Okay, well, we've got a website is up at the moment, EOSphere.io. I don't know, you're going to link it in your description.
Yeah.
You can read about all of our blogs and thoughts at Steemit on the EOSphere page. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and of course Twitter. So Twitter is probably one of the most active platforms, but we just use it as a link to publish back to our actual document. So the best way to get hold of me will probably be probably just actually send me an email. So it's ross@eosphere.io.
Great. Well, Ross, thank you so much for coming on. Any final thoughts? Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Ensure if you have EOS tokens, ensure that you register those tokens before we go live on the 1st of June. Not to say that you're going to immediately lose them, but you could save yourself a lot of hassle by registering them before June the 1st. And if you're unsure about how to register them, best to talk to one of your friends, maybe more than one of your friends who's actually done it, and get some kind of consensus. You don't want to be sending any of your private information or your wallet to some stranger on the internet. Failing that, you can try and get hold of me. I can point you onto the right place. The EOS.io website's got a good tool.
Great. Yeah, maybe we'll include some instructions as well. We'll see if we can do that.
Okay.
Well, thanks again, Ross. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, mate.
Cheers, man. Cheers.
Bye.
So I hope you enjoyed that interview with Ross Dold from EOSphere. And if that got a little bit ticky for you, then that's absolutely fine. Just hit me up on social or reach out to Ross and he'll happily answer your questions. Today's episode was sponsored by Process Street. We use Process Street at Rewired to map out our processes. They're highly editable in the cloud, and you can easily update and have different people in your organization update those processes. As in Rewired, your DNA is all about those technology tools, those processes, and the people in your business. And if you just want to, have a conversation, talk about what you're thinking about, what your technology vision is, then please let me know. I'm always happy to jump on a call and we can talk about it. Most importantly, it's all at Rewired about how to get you a hyper-performing technology team and the underlying technology for you to be successful. I'd love to hear from you, even if it's for a quick chat. I'm absolutely open to that and would love to hear from you. You take care. Till next time. Cheers.